Welcome to this week's Leadership Lunch Chat. My name is Amy Vetter, and I'm here with my good friend Jen Wilson.
Hi, everybody.
And each week we go through topics that we see popping up in our conversations in the world. And this week, what we thought we would talk about is feedback, all ways of feedback, but listening, being able to give good feedback, being able to receive feedback, no matter what your level is. And I always, to start off, love this quote, and it's from Gloria Steinem, but she says, when you don't have power, speak as much as you listen. And when you do have power, listen as much as you speak. And I think a lot of times as we move up the chain, listening is a hard thing, and getting feedback and continuing to look inside of ourselves and improve ourselves, or even observe what our behavior is and what is the perception of that behavior. So lots to unpack there. But Jen, did you want to get started?
Sure. I love where you just started, and that is this idea as leaders, as we move up the food chain and become more responsible for more things and take ownership of more things, and we're rolling out programs and responsible for the success of big, systems or communities. We get this thing called attachment, where we get super attached to the thing that we're responsible for, and all the effort we've put into it, and all the thinking and all the planning and all the conversations, and and so these things we've rolled out and these things that we're trying, we care a lot about them, and we feel good about them, or feel that they are right, whatever that is. And so as people start to have opinions about them, have comments, want to ask questions, um, don't like them sometimes, that we often spend more time defending than actually listening and letting people complete their question, complete their sentence, complete their idea. We go right into like objection handling and smacking down the objections or issues, and we're not listening. We can't hear how it's falling over there. And I know it's not because we don't care, but it's because we are operating in some weird autopilot of attachment to the outcome and attachment to the work done so far, that we can't sort of shut that stuff down and be quiet and hear.
Yeah.
And I think that's just such an enormous mistake I see leaders make, and I make it too. I mean, it's a common mistake.
Well, and I think we all move so fast. And the reason that this topic was kind of top of mind for me was I did an interview yesterday with an executive, but had been an elite athlete. And we kind of talked about her journey of being an elite athlete, and she has kids that are elite athletes. And so it reminded me of it's just such a different mindset when you think about athletes than professionals and executives. And I know I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. But I went to the speaker training probably 5 years ago, and it was for this purpose. I've been a speaker for 25 years, and never had actually gone to a training. And I thought, I want to retool. I want to know what I don't know, and so forth. And learning to get feedback is a really hard thing to go through when you think you're an expert in something, or what you're doing and you've been doing it, and so forth. So to really be present and allow yourself to get that feedback is hard. And so one of the things that they would do in this training was called master classes. And one of the speakers there was an Olympian runner, and she was doing her piece of her speech. You do like 5 minutes of it and get critiqued by the trainer. And he got on stage with her, and he was getting physical, showing her different movements she could make and so forth. And they were going back and forth. And as other speakers, you're watching the feedback that she's getting and how she's receiving it. And he paused and stopped to turn to the audience and say, I just want to pause and I want you to notice how she takes feedback. He said, when I coach athletes, it is totally different than when I coach professionals. That an athlete takes feedback and thinks, you're going to make me 1 second faster, 2 seconds faster. They're used to like feedback being a positive thing, that it's going to make them that much better. But executives, on the other hand, when we get feedback, then we start going, well, I'm good at this. Like I'm totally fine. I don't need your feedback. I don't care what your opinion is. And so what happens is we look at it at the negative, versus when you think about an athlete, they're looking at, that will make me even a 0.5% better. It's worth it. And I'm going to really listen intensely. And it was a really interesting moment of just what the difference in perception is on feedback.
Yeah. Well, and I'm looking at that right now and I'm thinking like, I'm trying to process like why, the why, the selfish interest, the real in-depth, like emotional why of why an executive would take it differently when it's all intended to make him or her better and faster and more successful also. And maybe first of all, none of us, is centered in the right way to think about the fact that anytime anybody offers us an idea, a suggestion, a concern, that it is really in our best interest, and how brave it is to give us that feedback, and like it's an act of love and caring. And when you get no feedback, people don't care about you. I tell people all the time when we're going to do upward evaluations of partner groups, I'll say to them, the partners who are most beloved will get the most feedback. They'll get tons of feedback. And frankly, they'll get lots of areas for improvement.
Right.
The ones that are horrible, bullies, mean, selfish, don't, just arrogant, all of that, we will beg people to give feedback. And why? Because people don't care about them. They're apathetic about them. They don't believe they'll change, and they're afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if people give you feedback, they are showing like an act of courage and an act of care. So, but an athlete knows that about their coach. And so why doesn't an executive? That's one question. And then the second is, I could get the time thing. Like, I don't want to revisit something I've launched or done or checked off my list. I don't have time for that. I need to keep moving. But if it's not effective or it's causing problems, that's, that time suck is coming in some way or another, sooner or later. Why not get the feedback sooner and address it? But I think it's like it's not time. Time's like the fake smokescreen objection. It's ego.
Yeah.
And it's arrogance. It's a form of arrogance, or like know-it-allness or something. Omnipotence. I don't know what the word is, but like, I already got this and I'm smarter than you on it or something. I don't know whatever that is. It's totally repellent. It's like people they're not attracted to it. They don't feel good about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also think from the other side of it, we've never been trained to properly take feedback.
True.
So, I can say from an accountant perspective, all the way from being, an assistant accountant and doing auditing, if you got a review note, that was a negative. That meant like you did something wrong. Very rarely did you ever get a review note and was like, great work on this. How you knew that you did a good job was getting no review notes, not getting review notes. And so, it really starts with that training, like right in the beginning, of what is good feedback versus that you're so afraid to go open it up, and then how to give that feedback. I even talk about this with a lot of accounting practices in review notes, that there should be training on how to write review notes, because depending on the partner, the manager, and if they're in a rush or if they write with capital letters, or it's all how someone takes it when they get that feedback. And that's really important. So one of the other things we did in that training, that was kind of like the first time I ever thought about feedback this way. But a lot of times when we ask for feedback, it's very open-ended. Like, give me feedback on how I'm doing. Well, now you're opening yourself up for anyone to just say anything versus I'm really working on my communication skills. Can you let me know when we were in that last meeting, how did you feel I delivered my message versus other times I've done it because I've been working on it and practicing and I want to make sure that I'm improving. That's a different type of way of getting feedback that's very targeted and productive versus opening it up, because what happens in our brains is if someone opens up and says, give me feedback, our brains have a natural tendency to go to the negative. Just like we go to the negative when we're like, don't give it to me. I don't want to hear it. I'm going to be defensive of what I do and how I do it. But I'm also, when I'm giving feedback, thinking about, oh, well, what are they doing wrong? Because that just seems to be what someone's asking, instead of what am I doing well and what things can I do to improve. And one of the things with feedback is actually flipping the questions and allowing someone to get there themselves as well, is asking them what do they think that they're doing really well at, what do they think that they need help with, and how you can help, allowing them, and even asking them, do you want feedback? Do you want me to give you some of the thoughts that I have that could help you improve? Because maybe they don't. And, it's an important thing to know before you get into that conversation.
Yeah. And I guess, that whole idea of how open are you to this feedback, or how's the timing right
Yeah.
now for me to give you feedback? Because sometimes it's like, I'm open to it, but right this minute, like we have 8 minutes till our next call, or, I just got a really bad piece of personal news, or, maybe this isn't a good time.
Right.
So asking those questions, like, how's this timing for me to give you feedback on that, or whatever, or how open are you to my feedback, and how is this timing? I think those are good questions to ask. And I think most of us really want feedback. In truth, like if we stop and really think about it, most of us are wanting to get better. We talk all the time to firms about trying to promote something we call the Get Better culture. And Get Better culture is everything in our business, every person in our business, every program, every client, everything could get better.
Mm-hmm.
There's refinements that could be made to everything. Nobody's at the perfect point, and they never will be. And so we're all trying to move the dial a little bit, just that tiny bit of refinement to get better. And if you have a Get Better culture, then feedback is part of that culture. It's just a natural part of everyone's trying to elevate. And so, like, on a team where everyone's trying to get better and trying to make what we're doing more effective, then feedback isn't resisted, and it's also not scary to deliver.
Right.
And so some of this is like cultural.
Right.
Like I'll look at core values, and I'll look at the way that partner groups run, or partner commitment statements, or code of conduct, or that kind of stuff. And if there's nothing in it about get better or feedback, that's a problem,
Right.
and it makes it difficult for people to take feedback. They're like, wait a minute, it's not part of our corporate construct here. I don't have to. And those organizations, I fear, have a hard time sustaining long term, because the market's changing so fast, and motivators are changing so quickly, of clients and of staff, that without perpetual feedback systems, I just don't know how you can be successful.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you start realizing in a team of what are the strengths of each person, not expecting each person to be like me or to be the same. And so a lot of times what feedback is based on a personal preference versus being able to step back and say, we have a number of different skill sets we need as a team. This is the strength of each person that creates the team that we need, the subject matter expertise that we need, and use the team strengths versus focusing on each person's individual weaknesses. And those weaknesses might be okay for their job description, or if they are worthy of being part of your team and you see potential in them, actually asking them where their career goals are to shift them somewhere else as well, that they might have a better fit. And that is the same from a leadership perspective. If you've got a leadership team and you're running a team, you've got to be really honest with yourself of what you're good at and what you're not good at. And where are you going to fill those gaps, rather than thinking that everyone needs to think like you, so that you have the strength and numbers and the power of the team. And so what I see a lot is that when others don't think like us, we get offended by those people if they have feedback as well. If we're getting strong feedback from our peers or from the people that work for us, it's important for us to step back and really observe why am I getting that feedback? And is it appropriate feedback, or are there things that I can do to address the feedback that I'm receiving? Because I think what's so hard as a leader is there's so much stress and what's the word? Responsibility that is put on a leader's shoulders, that when you get feedback from your peers or from the people that work for you, sometimes it's just too much to take, that you just have no patience for it. And so those are the times, and again, in training and to train yourself and to practice it, like you said, if I'm getting triggered right now, I need to step back. I need to pause. I need to find a way of when is the appropriate time to respond, versus responding in a way that I don't want to create, or that I avoid it because I don't want to deal with it, because that doesn't have it go away, or I gossip about it and I go talk to everybody else except the person and make the situation worse, or try to get groupthink to support me. And so this is a really personal thing to get trained on and feel like you're improving as well, that no matter where we are in our career, whether it's toward the end, middle, whenever, there's always things that we can step back and look at ourselves where we get off course and need to improve.
Improve and change.
Yeah.
Some of it's not even improvement. Yeah. Like I have to change it because the way people think has changed, or the way people work has changed, or whatever. I came across a TikTok video of, I think it's 4 young ladies, and they're in the lobby of maybe their office. I don't know whose lobby they're in, but they're somebody's, recording on their cell phone, and they're talking about firm brand. And they're saying, the firm brand's an 8, but they only use stock images. What rating would you give them? And the 3 other ladies who are voting are like, now they're a 5, because they only use stock images. And they do this for like 12 different kinds of, or 10 different kinds of things. A firm brand is a 2, but they post fresh content every day. Now their brand's a 7, so, and what it was I've shared it because I thought, man, this is a way that next generation people think that isn't being told to their leaders. This is out there on TikTok, kind of like underground, but it's about brand, and it's about social media and digital content. Okay. But it's not really, that's not why I was attracted to it. I was attracted to it because it was a paradigm of the way that they think. Mm-hmm. And how, something could be held in high esteem, but because it wasn't like meeting digital standards of theirs, whether we're talking about marketing or not, digital standards, which young people value. If it wasn't meeting them, then it was just not that great. And I thought, wow, this kind of feedback has to get given. You got to make space for them to be able to play a game in the lobby of your firm about whatever it is. So how's our remote and flex program? Well, the remote and flex program is a 7, but they keep saying we have to get back to the office, and some of us are 100% remote and we're nowhere near an office. So now it's a 2. I mean, like we have to like let them give us feedback like that.
And not get offended.
Because
that's
it's there.
What I see is they get offended by the feedback because, the people that are the leaders are funding all of the different benefits and, flex time and so forth. And it's not what they had. And so it gets offensive to them when they hear like it's not enough. And it doesn't mean that they're not like, and I feel like a lot of times it gets couched as they don't want to work as hard or they just want to have a lot of time off. And it isn't that, and so if you're really being, not color it with your own opinion and really try to listen to what that video is saying, and so forth, there are things that you can take away from it that you're like, okay, I am usually in a room with everyone that looks like me and we can all agree together. But when I'm not in a room with people that don't look like me, that's when I'm pushed. That's when I'm challenged. That's when I have to, step back and really be critical.
And listen and learn.
Yeah.
Because that's feedback back to your coaching analogy and your high performance athletes. That's a perpetual get better, hopefully.
Yeah.
And it's perpetual learning. Like the practice of yoga, you're not like, I did yoga today because now I do it exactly perfectly all the time. It's a perpetual practice. I'm a runner. I'm always trying to beat my last time, or do it a little faster or have a little faster footfall or whatever it is. And I'm constantly reading about ways to increase my speed or be more efficient or not be so worn out after long ones. And that's get better. And why wouldn't we want to do that at work?
Yeah. Well, awesome. We have gone over time. So I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation and can take some things away from it. Always appreciate spending time with you each week, Jen.
You too.
And I look forward to next week. And if anyone has anything you'd like us to talk about, feel free to let us know. Have a great weekend.
Bye.